Hello and welcome to grammar class. Today's lesson is all types of interrogative sentences. But first off, what is an interrogative sentence? Well, an interrogative sentence is another term for a question. In other words, an interrogative sentence asks a question or seeks some information. And that is why it always ends with a question mark. Remember, in an interrogative sentence, the subject and the verb are always inverted. Hence, we always see either the auxiliary verb or the main verb placed before the subject in an interrogative sentence. For example, you are hungry is a statement or declarative sentence. To make it interrogative, we have to bring the verb are before the subject you. This is known as the subject-verb inversion in English grammar. So the sentence, "Are you hungry?" is an interrogative sentence or a question. There are many types of interrogative sentences in English grammar. Let's check them out. Well, to begin with, we have the yes-no questions, also known as the closed questions. You see, a yes-no interrogative sentence is one that can be answered in yes or no. Simple, isn't it? But remember, yes-no questions always start with an auxiliary or linking verb such as verb be, verb have, verb do, or some modal auxiliary. There are two structures of yes-no questions. Number one, auxiliary verb plus subject plus main verb plus other words. But if there is no auxiliary or helping verb, verb be or verb have may also come before the subject in the sentence. For example, the question, "Are you going to college?" can be answered in yes or no. So it's a yes-no question. It starts with the auxiliary verb are followed by the subject you, and then comes the main verb going before the other words to college. The question, "Is this your car?" is also answerable in yes or no. But in this yes-no question, there is only one verb here, is, no auxiliary verb here. And so the only verb is has come before the subject this. Have you or haven't you seen the Great Wall of China? You can also answer this question in yes or no. This yes-no question starts with the auxiliary verb have, followed by the subject you, and then comes the main verb seen before the object, the Great Wall of China. The last interrogative sentence, "Can you answer my question?" is also answerable in yes or no. As you can see, this yes-no question starts with the modal verb can followed by the subject you, and then comes the main verb answer before the object my question. Up next, we have WH questions, also called open questions. But why are these questions called WH questions? Because they start with a WH word like what, when, why, where, how, whom, who, whose, etc. But remember, these WH questions cannot be answered in yes or no. They are answered with some specific information. A WH question begins with a WH word, and then comes the auxiliary verb followed by the subject and then the main verb before the other words. If there is no auxiliary verb, the main verb itself comes before the subject. For example, WH questions like why are you late, when did you come, etc. are not answerable in yes or no. In reply to the first question, you have to state the reason for coming late. And to answer the second question, you have to state the time of your coming. In the same way, what is he doing, how did he die, who is calling are all examples of WH questions. And we notice that in the first four questions, either the auxiliary verb or the main verb is coming before the subject. However, in the last example, the WH word who itself is the subject of the sentence. So the verbs are coming after the subject here. Now, what about indirect or embedded questions? You see, the indirect question is a polite and indirect way of seeking information. It consists of two clauses. The first clause is the main clause, and the second clause or the subordinate clause contains the indirect query. The second clause or the subordinate clause usually starts with a WH word and contains no subject-verb inversion. This is important. The indirect question has no subject-verb inversion. In other words, in indirect questions, the verb comes after the subject. For example, do you know where he lives? Here the speaker is not directly asking where does he live. So, do you know where he lives is an indirect question. In this interrogative sentence, do you know is the main clause and where he lives is the subordinate clause containing the indirect query. We notice that this part of the indirect question starts with the WH word where and the verb lives comes after the subject he. It is also important to note that if the main clause is interrogative, we use a question mark, and if it is assertive, we use the full stop. I wonder what he is going to do next is another example of the indirect question. But if you say what is he going to do next, it will be a direct question. In this example also, we see that the subordinate clause of the indirect question starts with the WH word what and the verb is going is coming after the subject he. In the same way, instead of asking somebody directly when will the next train arrive, we may politely ask him, could you tell me when the next train arrives? This too is an indirect question. Again, instead of saying, do you agree with us? We may politely say, please let us know whether you agree with us. So we understand that all yes-no questions and WH questions previously explained are direct questions. Why did you quit your job is a direct question. But may I ask you why you quit your job is an indirect question. The reported question in the indirect narration is also considered an indirect question. He asked me where you lived. In this sentence, the subordinate clause where you lived contains the indirect question. What are emphatic questions? Well, emphatic questions are WH questions that ask for some information in an emphatic manner. In an emphatic question, the WH word or the question word is followed by the word ever to express anger, surprise, concern, etc. But remember, the word ever is written separately from the question word in the sentence. For example, the emphatic question, wherever did you learn this trick, expresses the speaker's surprise. Similarly, however did he escape from the prison is an emphatic question expressing the speaker's surprise or astonishment. How did he escape from the prison is a regular question, but the use of the word ever after the question word how makes it emphatic. Likewise, whoever permitted to go out expresses the speaker's anger, so it's an emphatic sentence. But if you say who permitted you to go out, there is no emphasis, it's a regular question. Whatever did you gain from this act is another emphatic question. The use of ever after the question word what expresses the speaker's emotion or emphasis. Now, what are rhetorical questions? In English, the word rhetoric means dramatic and effective speaking. Rhetorical questions are questions that do not seek or expect any answer, but make or emphasize a statement in a dramatic and effective manner. For example, when a certain character of a Shakespearean play says, if you prick us, do we not bleed? He does not expect an answer to his question. In fact, this is a dramatic way of stating the fact that if you prick us, we do bleed. And then when somebody says who doesn't want to be happy, he doesn't need an answer to this question because the answer is obvious. In fact, through this interrogative structure, he is emphasizing the point that everybody wants to be happy. Does money grow on trees is also a rhetorical question, because the point made here is money does not grow on trees. If a person says, I am so busy these days, where is the time to chat? He is making the point that he has no time to chat. The picnic was great. What didn't we do? Here too, the speaker is not demanding an answer to his question, what didn't we do? In fact, in a dramatic and effective manner, he is emphasizing the statement that they did a lot of things there. So this too is a rhetorical question. Tag questions or question tags are very common in spoken English. A speaker uses a tag question or a part question after a statement to seek a confirmation from his listener. A tag question merely consists of the auxiliary verb and the subject pronoun of the main statement. It's important to remember that if the statement is positive, the question tag is negative, and if the statement is negative, the tag question is positive. For example, John lives in London, doesn't he? Here the statement is positive, so the question tag doesn't he is negative. We also see here that the main verb in the statement lives is in simple present tense, so the question tag has the auxiliary verb of the simple present tense doesn't. And the subject of the main statement is John, so the question tag has its pronoun he. In the next example, Jane did not pass the test, did she? The main statement is negative, so the question tag did she is positive. He has betrayed you, hasn't he? From these examples, it's clear that a question tag consists of the auxiliary verb and the subject pronoun of the main statement, and that a question tag is not a full interrogative sentence but a part question used to seek confirmation of the statement. Up next is echo questions. Well, an echo question is used when we do not understand or hear or believe what the speaker says and expect him to repeat the important information. An echo question ends with a WH word or a question word. For example, if somebody tells me, the other day I met Mr. Biden, I may not believe him. So I may utter an echo question asking him to repeat the important information. You met who? If your friend tells you some primitive tribes eat bats, you may find it incredible. So you may react with an echo question. They eat what? In this way you ask him to repeat the last word of his statement, bats. If somebody says the fugitive hid himself in a manhole, the other person may fail to hear or understand the last word of the statement. So he echoes it into a question. He hid himself where? So that's an echo question for you. Finally, we have alternative questions. Alternative questions give us a choice between two or more alternative answers. In other words, an alternative question has two or more alternative answers. For example, do you like or hate his company? In reply, I might either say I like his company or I might say I hate his company. So I have two alternative answers to this question. Is he watching TV or taking exercise? This is also an alternative question. Why? Because this question has two alternative answers. She is either watching TV or taking exercise. What would you like to have? Tea or coffee? This question is about the two alternatives, tea or coffee. And as you can see, the two alternatives provided in the question are joined by the conjunction or. An alternative question may also consist of two clauses, but the second clause is usually elliptical. Do you smoke heavily or don't you? The answer may be yes I do or no I don't. The last question also provides a choice between two possible alternatives: returning tonight or staying back overnight. And so this is also an alternative question. That's the end of today's class. If you liked the video, please be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more grammar videos. Thanks for watching.